you don't have to choose between your spouse and your children. You really don't. Because when you do it the right way, when your children are able to see how you're modeling the right kind of relationship, the right marriage for them, they actually celebrate the fact that you and your spouse want to spend time together.
At some point.
Hello, and welcome to a Purpose-Driven Marriage podcast. We are Dwayne and Nadine Stewart, and we love any and all things marriage. You've tuned into the right place if you're looking for actionable, practical tips to help you overcome real-life obstacles common to real relationships. We're here to help you strive for a marriage as God has designed it and not as the world has defined it. Because why settle for a good marriage when you can have a great one?
So today's topic is something, again, I'm looking forward to, but this one, it's because we happen to know so much about it.
We have a lot of experience in this topic, right? Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
When we think about balancing life and love and work and all the things that have to do with it, having 2 full-time careers, having 6 kids, and all the things that go along with 6 kids, everybody knows that just 1 kid is enough.
Oh, yeah.
And you throw 5 others in there, it's crazy. Plus a dog and a cat and family members and all that stuff. It's hard to balance. So how do we keep things fresh? How do we stay connected? How do we stay aligned within all the busyness of life? How do we do that?
Yeah, those are great goals. But the reality of it all is that for many couples, they're just wanting to see each other from time to time, right? Because there are seasons. Yeah, there are seasons in life when we honestly feel like 2 ships passing in the night. And so, in the last, 26 years? Or we're going on 26 years. Our anniversary is coming up. And so in the past 26 years, our seasons have changed, right? But the priority has always been making sure that our marriage is number one, is right there. Second only to our relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
But we had to make sure that our relationship was a priority. And I guess that's what I would say. Yeah. Right. So the title of today's episode is Balancing Life and Love. Right. And we actually have 5 time management hacks for busy couples. Yeah. And the reason that this is so important is because, number one, we know just from personal experience how challenging it can be to balance the two.
Right.
And number 2, this is something that couples tell me about all the time. When I ask them, okay, so what brings you in here? They can identify really the reason why they're not connecting in their marriage, right? Like, wait, you had mentioned just a minute ago.
Right.
They can say, well, we don't spend any time with each other. Between coaching the kids in soccer or basketball or whatever,
PTA
meetings
and work and
exactly, like when are they going to spend time with each other?
Yeah.
And when you ask them, well, what was the relationship like prior to you having children? They're like, oh, it was great. We got along really well. We spent a lot of time together. We traveled. We did things together. And then the kids come along, and kids are a blessing, right? They're fantastic. They're wonderful. And life begins to happen. Work, gets busier and busier. The demands become greater and greater. And all of a sudden, they're like 2 ships passing in the night.
What is the term? I think we've talked about it before, but like busyness, is busyness a thief of something, or busyness is something? I kind of forget what it is, but the whole concept is that like when you're busy, it gets you to believe that you're actually doing something productive. You know what I mean? And with all of the things that we both do, you go to PTA meetings. I take the kids to practice. I go to work. You have a meeting over here, and all these things happen. And then you come home and you feel like you accomplished so much.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, let's have dinner. We have some dinner, and then literally fall asleep and wake up the next day and do the same thing again.
Like groundhogs.
You know what I mean? But you're like, oh, I accomplished a lot, but you did.
Yeah.
But then you did it. You know what I mean?
No.
And the one thing that's missing is the connection. Is like your husband, my wife. And I think that part is sometimes not recognized until way later.
Way later. Yes. When you're looking backwards trying to figure out where do we go wrong.
Yep. Yep. And then you got to try to fix it at that point instead of trying to be more intentional about making sure you don't go off path.
Yeah, well, that's why we're doing this episode, because there are a lot of listeners out there that are still in the thick of it, or even listeners that are just starting out.
Yep.
And so they can do things the right way. So they're not having to look backwards, wondering where did it all go wrong.
Yeah. I'll just be, we'll both be truthful here, is that the reason why we can say these things now is because we've gone through it ourselves.
Yes.
Just being who we are, I think we were more intentional about like making sure that we have everything lined up, organized and things like that so that we can still have time for each other. But, you know, the busyness of life still happens.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And so because of those things, we can now share some of our experiences so that maybe you don't have to go through it.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's right.
Right? Our kids are now on the other side of that. But it's crazy though, babe. We're still busy.
Yeah, I know. Just in different ways.
It hasn't changed. You know, I thought when we're done coaching and doing all those things and driving all the kids to different practices and all the volunteer activities at schools, and I say schools plural because one time they were going to 4 different schools at the same time.
Well, it's still the same thing.
Yeah, and
it's just at a different scale.
Exactly.
All of our kids are at different schools.
And
like
so
every single one of them.
Every single one of them are at a different school. It's still busy. Yeah. So, you know, we'll go over what it is that worked for us. And we'll also go over what relationship experts and time management experts recommend to help you balance that life and love. If you're just like anybody else, a busy couple.
Let's get into it. Let's do it.
So before we go into what these 5 time management hacks that we're going to talk about for balancing your life and love, especially as, you know, busy families, there is one thing, like one pro tip that Dwayne and I made sure to incorporate into our family from day one. And that was making the decision that our marriage had to be prioritized. Right? Because when we made that decision, then it created the right mindset for us to make sure that we were trying to figure out ways to not put our marriage in the back seat behind everything else, but instead making sure that even with the busyness of life, our marriage was still a priority.
Yeah. What's really interesting about that is, I don't know who taught me this, whether it be a pastor or it was just biblical or as a friend, but I've always thought that, you know, what came first? People say, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay. That's still a question. What is it? I don't know.
I think it's the chicken.
It's the chicken.
Yes.
But with this union, right? What came first? You have kids, you have a career, you have, you know, a dog, you have a house, you have a neighborhood, you have all these different things, community. What came first in order to start that whole legacy?
Us.
It was us,
right?
And you can't forget about us just because you're building something else.
Something else.
You know what I mean? That's maybe something bigger than us, right? But we're the catalyst. And so if you don't give fuel and grow and cultivate and invest in that catalyst, then that fire is going to die and everything else dies with it. Everything else suffers because of that.
Oh, that's such a great explanation.
So as we think about this, as you all think about this, think about you being the start of it, and all the things that grow from it is a blessing, is a benefit of that. But you can't forget about where it started.
Yeah, and without that mindset that you just mentioned, these hacks, they won't be successful.
Yeah.
Right? Because your priorities aren't aligned. You are not where you see marriage as being the priority.
Yeah.
Right? So, all right. So let's get started. The first recommendation that we have for couples to help overcome that busyness and still make time for love in your busy life is incorporating a weekly marriage meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
Just connection.
Yeah, just connection, just a check-in meeting, whether it's on a Sunday night, maybe before the week, or on a Friday night, maybe you start your date night with this real quick. That's actually what we used to do.
Right, yeah.
Before we would get into the whole date thing, we would talk about what went on that week, what went well, what didn't go well, and what it is that we have to look forward to in the next week.
Yeah.
And then after that conversation, then, we move on to the date.
Yeah.
So that weekly marriage meeting helps to either set you up for the week ahead, or it helps to close out the week that you just had.
Yeah. It's just a recap.
Exactly.
A bit of a recap. I think it's really important to stay aligned from that perspective, just because, there's a lot of moving pieces to a family.
Yes.
And in order to make sure that everything runs correctly, just like a business, a company, whatever it is, or organization, we as, co-CEOs have to be aligned. So one thing that I loved, especially during this time, was your organization, because I can't even remember when we started it, but we started like a Google Calendar.
Oh, yeah.
And so literally everything was on the calendar, all the kids' practices, the PTA meetings, the work meetings, the church meetings, all these different things that happened. And then also date nights. So you would schedule a date night. I'm like, okay, cool. I guess we're going on a date. So it was really cool to see that, because that kept us organized, but it helped reduce the chaos. Even though it was busy, when people came over to take care of our kids while we were on vacation, people were like, how do you do this? It's not that hard when you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So
yeah, well, and having that conversation, 30 minutes a week, to be able to talk about, hey, just so you know, this week we've got all the sports physicals, we've got this going on. And then it's easy for us to anticipate it, right? And so when it pops up on your calendar, it's not a surprise that it was going to happen. And the Google Calendar that we started years and years ago, that actually is part of hack number 2, which is time blocking, right? Time blocking. I'm not sure if you guys do this yet. It is, everyone keeps recommending it to me.
Yeah.
And this is something that I actually need to do more of. I've been doing it because that's where the Google Calendar and scheduling our date nights and, scheduling everything, that's where that plays a big role. But I think I actually need to do it more so in my business, right? Because for me, so much of our personal life bleeds into my work.
Right.
And so if I'm not blocking off time at work, my personal life can very easily just eat into it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we've incorporated, as you were saying, for years, and we taught our children to start doing this from the time they had an email account.
Yep.
Right. I don't even know what age kids have email accounts nowadays. Because
so
our
whenever
oldest
they have
is
practices, right, or games, put it on the calendar. Not our responsibility. It's yours.
Exactly.
Right. If you want us to come, then make sure it's on the calendar.
Exactly. They put their games on there, right? Just all those things. They put that in the calendars, and so do we.
Yep.
We put everything on the calendar. Our dates, our vacations. Sometimes Dwayne would find out when we're going on vacation simply because he saw a calendar invitation.
Like, what's that all about? We going somewhere?
And so, but that works for us because Dwayne is perfectly fine with me planning all our trips because he's like, I'm good. Like, surprise me, babe.
Yeah.
But
even doctor's appointment. Put doctor's appointments on there. I put my work trips, like anytime I would go somewhere. And so it's important to make sure that everybody's on the same page and they're all kind of anticipating, okay, well, if Dad's not going to be here for those 2 days, then somebody else has got to step up. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But the great thing about that is it also allows us to set the boundaries that we need to set so that we know that work activities are happening during work hours and personal time is happening during our personal hours, right? And so we know that I can schedule a walk with my husband because I want to spend time with him, and it's okay for me to schedule it for after dinner because he's not working during that time because we have blocked it out. And so whatever it might be, right? Our weekly dates, I put it on the calendar. That's how we're able to make sure that it's happening. So when people ask, how do you make sure you guys are going on dates? Or even how do you make sure that you end up scheduling sex, right? Like, 'cause sometimes life just gets so busy, you even forget about that. Well, schedule it. I mean, we haven't had to do that.
I don't forget about it.
I know you don't forget about it. And so you and I have not used that tip yet. But there are a lot of couples out there right now that are enjoying a wonderful sex life because they have blocked time to make sure it happens.
Sometimes that's what you got to do, you know, or it might just be implied, like during conversations or whatever. You're like, hey, I can't wait till tonight or whatever. Like, oh, something's happening tonight? Okay. Cool.
No, I have some couples that have little symbols on their calendar to block out that time for intimacy, whatever time of day it's going to happen. So using shared digital calendars like Google Calendar for us, it could be whatever it is that you guys use is really helpful to make sure that there's separation between work, personal, all the different responsibilities with the kids, and everything else. And so you want to make sure that you're blocking time for the important stuff for your marriage.
Yeah, that's right.
Even if that's just a walk, right? I mean, or the weekly dates.
And to be honest with you, you can do the walk and incorporate number 3, which is just a 10-minute daily connection, right? So if we really think about it, you can walk for 10 minutes. Or you can walk for an hour. And we tend to walk the dog while we go out and hang out and just have a conversation. And that is a great way to get that conversation in because it's intentional. There's really no distractions. You can put the phone in your pocket, do whatever you need to do from that perspective. But all we got is the dog and us. And so the one thing that does get in the way is when you're walking in the neighborhood, you end up seeing a lot of people. So maybe you might want to go somewhere where you don't know a bunch of people because you end up like going half a block and spending like an hour talking to like the whole neighbors. I mean, and it's great to connect with the neighbors. I'm not saying that's bad because we do it all the time. But sometimes when you want to connect with each other, you kind of have to like just get away.
Yeah, but that undistracted one-on-one time doesn't just have to happen with walks, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people that do it before the kids even wake up. You know, the morning people, maybe they have a cup of coffee together. They sit out on the back porch and they just enjoy time together. And by the way, when I say 10 minutes, we don't mean 10 minutes total. For us, it's actually 10 minutes per person. Right. And so it's 20 minutes total. And it gives us each 10 minutes to talk about what's on our mind.
Yeah.
For at the end of the day, we actually call that a stress reducing exercise where you guys come home and you check in with each other and basically unwind from the day and just talk about, oh gosh, this is what happened during the day. And then that's it. That's the last time you guys talk about work.
Yeah. Leave work behind at that point. Turn the computer off, do all those things. And then that's like the cutoff from work to now home life. Because home life should be home life. Work life can be, you know, before that.
Exactly. Or it could be maybe after dinner, sitting on the couch together. The thing that Dwayne and I do now almost nightly is because, you know, we have older children now. And so they get to help with the chores and cleaning up after dinner. I cook, they clean. Yeah. And so while they're cleaning, they turn up the music downstairs. And that's our cue.
We go upstairs
to go retreat into our bedroom. So while they're cleaning up the kitchen, playing music really loud, Dwayne and I are upstairs. And that's when we spend our 20 minutes or so just kind of catching up and just, you know, winding down together and just talking about the day.
That's fun. Even though I do get a little anxious because I'm like, them kids better be cleaning. That's what I've been thinking about. So I need to stop doing that. Stop it.
Because we're not supposed to have any distractions.
I know.
Because during that time, we put the phone away. We just, no distractions. Yeah. And so we get away from the kids. So you shouldn't be thinking about whether or not the kids are doing the dishes.
Can't help it.
All right. So hack number 4. This one is the other thing that we really made use of. And we had to. If you are in the season where you're juggling, 50 different things at the same time. This was something that we incorporated and we weren't ashamed of it. And that was, we call it delegating and automating. So what that includes is accepting help from other people. So for us, what that looked like was carpool.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there was
carpool was a lifesaver.
Oh my goodness, there was no possible way when Dwayne and I were the only 2 drivers in the house because no one else was old enough to drive. And there were 6 kids in at least like a minimum of 6 sports activities. right? A minimum of that, because many of them played 2 or 3 sports.
Yeah.
And so
2 kids played volleyball, a couple that played soccer, 2 or 3 played soccer, and then it was
basketball,
like all the stuff, track, everything. It was so
everything.
much.
And so there was no way we could have gotten all the kids to all the places they had to be without us accepting help from other people.
And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I feel like, oh, we can do it. And at a certain point, you just say, you know what? It's just better if we are okay with people helping us.
Yes,
because I think people want to help too in that case. So it was, what I learned from that is that, people love to serve also. You know what I mean? They love to do that. So I think that was one thing, but it freed us up to be more productive in our household.
Yeah.
Either whatever other things that we had to do, we take that one thing, that one task off of our plate, and that frees us up to do something else.
Yeah. And some of the other things that we did, and this worked for us, and we were at a point in our lives where we could do this, and that was outsourcing some of our tasks. So house cleaning, it was just so challenging to keep up with it. And so during the busiest times in our lives, we had a housekeeper that came every 2 weeks that helped us with the deep cleaning, and then we just kind of maintained. And that was also when we hired the landscaper to help us with the yard work, because for a while, what was taking our landscaper an hour to do every 2 weeks was taking Dwayne an entire weekend to do.
Not the whole weekend.
Okay. An entire Saturday then.
It took up some time.
It did.
It freed me up to, I enjoyed it for a very long time, and I still enjoy landscaping.
One's judging you.
But at the same time, you come home and your grass is cut and the dirt is all perfect and everything. And I'm like, well, shoot, that's actually kind of nice. Like no weeds. I'm like, all right, well, that was a little bit of work. Maybe I can do something else instead of that.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate it.
It freed us up to, number one, get the kids to all the different places that they needed to go and be able to support them with all their activities. But then we didn't have to come home and do those things ourselves. Yeah. Right? We maintained so that you and I could still have time for each other. And so that was really important. We accepted that was necessary for that point in our lives.
Right, I agree.
Right? Because being able to spend time together and still be able to fulfill our parental roles was really important to us. And so outsourcing certain things.
So think of other things besides the housekeeper and the gardener or landscaper. There's a lot of things that happen in people's lives that they could probably delegate to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Some of the other things, which I'm sure everyone does this at this point, was even automating like bills.
Yeah.
Right. So you remember when you used to have to sit down and like write out checks to
pay bills.
Yeah, pay bills. Exactly. And
until bill pay came.
Yes. Well, so that was like, that would take hours to do. Now I don't know who still does that.
Right.
But that was a game changer for us. Right. When we were
Even my mom is automated now, so if she's not writing checks, I think she still writes checks.
Yes.
And we do too.
Yes.
To a certain extent. But yeah, I agree with you. Save some time that way.
Yeah, and there's actually research that shows that outsourcing the non-essential tasks reduces stress and increases happiness. Yeah. Right. So there's some research that backs that up. Yeah, it wasn't just us being lazy.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I think it's understanding your situation and figuring out ways to take some burden off of yourself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think that's really it.
Yes. And the final hack is the no tech rule for a couple of times, right?
We should all have this, not just us too, but the kids as well, like the whole family, but especially us when we're trying to just have some alone time together. The one thing that I think that irks me the most is either when I think about the phone or when you are, you know what I mean, where you might be talking to me and I pick up the phone for whatever reason and it's like, okay, why the heck did I do that just now? Because it's not a good look. You know what I mean? No. And plus you are distracted. Even if you just have your phone in your hand and you're talking to me and I have my phone in my hand, then you can kind of sense that, okay, anytime that thing buzzes, he's going to be looking at it.
Well, I think it dilutes the time together, right? Like I don't think you're getting I don't know the right thing, the biggest bang for your buck, right? That time together, I feel
undivided attention, really.
Yeah, I feel like it's diluted. Like the quality of that time is not as good when you know that you're having to split your attention between me and your phone that's sitting in your hand, whether or not you're making a phone call or whether or not you're on it, it's sitting in your hand. And so, one of the things that we've incorporated is a no tech or no phone rule when we're having dinner together. Like we don't, the TV gets turned off. No one's allowed.
The phones are all on the island.
Yep, they get put away, so they're not at the kitchen table. And so that's the time when really, for the entire family, we find ourselves connecting the most. Through the years, our children will tell you that they have had so many productive and just really deep conversations with each other and with us around the kitchen table because we've incorporated that no tech rule. And so, we used to have this thing called table talk.
That's right.
And that was, basically what we did every single night at dinner. We still do. That's true.
I guess we don't call it table talk, but we just start conversations. You know what I mean? And so it's like, how was your day? Let's talk about things that's going on. And now that our kids are working, they'll start talking about work. Oh my goodness, this happened. And then that just starts a whole thing. And I'm like, that's awesome. It's really great to just hear what's going on in their lives, and we can talk about things that we are experiencing and kind of share with them, and sometimes make them teaching moments. A lot of times make them teaching moments. It's a great thing. And so if you out there have not incorporated that into your family life, please do. Please create that environment where your kids feel free to talk and have a conversation, not be on their phones, not be watching TV, but just thinking about the other person. You know what I mean? Start a conversation. Be curious. Find out what's going on. And so I think that was one of the best things we've done.
Oh, yeah. And here's a little tip that I'll just add. Dwayne doesn't know that I was going to bring this up, but if you want to have some ideas for what you can get your kids to talk about, there are these placemats that we bought from Amazon years ago. I mean, these placemats are so old.
I wonder if they even sell them anymore.
Yeah, but they're laminated placemats, and each one has different topics or type of categories.
Categories.
Right? And so it could be like the human body, the solar system, the presidents of the United States, the country.
Map of the world, map of the U.S., all the capitals. There's one with money. Yep. We had that. We
even had rocks,
multiplication
geology.
tables and stuff like that.
Exactly. And
the
so
periodic table.
What we would do is they would get randomly passed out when we would set the table because there are placemats, and we would assign each of our children to take 5 minutes to read through their placemats, and then they need to teach us something.
Yeah.
And so it got them involved in the conversation, and then we would ask them follow-up questions. And so the conversations, would take place. This is how we started table talk time. And the kids weren't just sitting there watching Dwayne and I talk to each other or looking down at their plates, pushing the food around.
There is a point where we're all eating because you're hungry in the beginning.
Well, not everyone's talking at the same time.
Right.
And so, but that's how we got the kids to talk. That's how we got them interested in having dinner conversations. And not needing their phones right there next to them. And so they were learning something, and it was their responsibility to teach. And we each had to listen because everyone was going to have their turn where they get to teach something. And to this day, in fact, my son was just telling us earlier this week that he did really well on an exam, and it was our fault.
Yep, because
I think it was from one of the placemats. It was world history or something like that.
Visual. He's got that memory that he just can't forget the placemat anymore.
Oh, yeah. They've got the states and capitals memorized from a very young age because of I
think because of that is the reason why I remember almost all the states. But even world maps, I mean, I can really just picture
Yeah.
And you can kind of visualize all the different places. So you kind of know kind of in general where everything is. But anyway, that's off a tangent. But it's helpful. You know what I mean? It's helpful in learning, and it's fun to learn with your family.
Yes. And I love how, we are incorporating not just how you and I can prioritize our relationship, but really one of the concerns that a lot of couples voice to me is they worry that by focusing so much on their own relationships that they're neglecting their relationship with their kids.
Don't have to do that.
And I mean, you don't have to choose between your spouse and your children. You really don't. Because when you do it the right way, when your children are able to see how you're modeling the right kind of relationship, the right marriage for them, they actually celebrate the fact that you and your spouse want to spend time together.
At some point.
And as you can hear from our conversations, our children never felt neglected, but our children always felt loved. They always felt included in everything that we did, including this no tech time at the dinner table, right? And so we were building connection, not just with each other, but with the entire family. And I think that being able to model that, especially in this busy time it feels like everyone's so busy. I can't even say it's just a season anymore because it feels like it's a nonstop, continuous season that we pretty much just have to accept.
You just feel like society is demanding more of you.
Yes.
Like when it comes to work, people are like, well, if you need to get ahead, you need to do this and you need to do that. And all of a sudden you find yourself at dinner sitting at the counter with your computer instead of sitting down with the family.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, no, there is a point in time where you have to just cut that off. There's going to be time for you to do that task that you have to do at work, whatever. There's nothing that is more important than spending time with your family and cultivating that, because time, what do we always say about time? You can't buy it, you can't get it back.
Nope.
You know what I mean? And so when it's gone,
it's gone.
You can't reverse time and go back and experience that ever again. You lost it. So, so it's really important to make sure that when you have the time, you take advantage of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's recap.
Yeah.
All right. So first and foremost, before the 5 hacks, developing that mindset of just recognizing the importance of prioritizing your relationship, prioritizing your marriage. It's the best thing for you, and it's the best gift you can give your children, right? And so then the 5 hacks to make sure that you guys are still prioritizing your love, prioritizing your family, prioritizing each other, even in the never-ending busy season of life. They start with the weekly marriage meeting, 30 minutes a week.
Doesn't have to be complicated.
Doesn't have to be complicated.
Make it super simple.
Exactly.
Just, recap of what you did last week. Let's talk about next week.
Exactly.
And anything else in between.
Yeah, you could either use it to kick off the week or to recap the week that you just had.
Right. Yeah.
And then number 2 is time blocking. That's when you put anything that's important to you on the calendar, which includes time together.
Yes, right.
It includes those walks around the neighborhood. It includes the date nights. It includes the intimacy time, right? And so you put that in there. If it's important to you, it goes on the calendar.
Third one is just that 10-minute conversation, one-on-one, whether it be sitting on the couch, whether it be upstairs, it could be a walk, it could be a drive, right? Down the road or whatever. You can go shopping. You can do whatever you want, right?
That daily connection
whatever
ritual.
That is, you just have to make sure you prioritize daily connection.
Yep. Number 4 is delegating and automating.
Yeah.
That's when, if you can get people to help you with carpooling, if you can outsource some of the work that's taking up a lot of your time to free you up to be able to spend more time with each other, to be able to focus on getting the kids to where they need to be and having that family time, whatever it might be. Delegate, outsource, and automate. Yeah. That's super important.
Yeah, so important.
And number 5
is just no tech.
No tech couple time or no tech family time.
Yeah, whatever that means to you, just do not include anything with electricity or with a screen
or batteries.
A battery. Your phone, your tablet, your computer, your TV.
Yep.
All those things should be turned off.
Video games,
especially during times where you are all intentionally spending time together at the dinner table, one-on-one, wherever that is. No distractions, so that you can truly invest in the conversation and just intentionally just getting to know what happened throughout the day. What are the things that your spouse or your kids are thinking about? It's just a lot of things that you can do if you just try.
Yeah.
just
break
make
out
an
into
effort.
a song. So I'd love to know if there's anything else, there's anything else that we've missed that you guys are doing to make sure that you're continuing to prioritize your relationship. Let us know. Hit us up on social media. Send me an email. We would love to know. And next week, we are celebrating our 26th wedding anniversary.
26?
And so I'm hoping that we could record something that is related to like maybe lessons that we've learned in the 26 years of marriage. Because that's a long time. 26 years, it's good.
It's quite a while.
All right, that's over a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
Right. And so make sure you tune in next week.
You make it sound old.
Make it sound so old. I know. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a review, subscribe, help us out so we can share this so we could continue to help marriages out there.
Yeah.
Right? Help promote those healthy, thriving marriages.
Yeah. Amen.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on A Purpose-Driven Marriage, and we'll see you next week.